All right, looks like we're live. Hello, welcome everyone. Another episode of the BCS Sports Show.
Woo!
Hello, woo, yay.
It's really a miracle I made it here tonight. So
you crushed it though. That's what's important. You're here. Is Twitch is being stupid.
I'm here in a new room, but it looks like my usual room because this is all just an AI generated image.
It's magic.
One of the few that I've ever been able to generate that did not have like nightmare fuel in the background.
Oh yeah, I guess that
the background of most things I've ever generated is like,
is it like there's like demon spawn and shit back there?
Where you're like, what is going on?
That's funny. All right. I guess where do we want to get started? We have basketball. We have college football playoff stuff potentially. Do either one of you guys have any burning topics?
I want to talk about the college football playoff stuff because I think it's dumb.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about college football playoff. So, is it they're looking to expand to 16 teams? Is that?
Which, first of all, I think that in and of itself is probably a mistake.
Okay.
But I'd be willing to entertain that. But the powers that be are using it as a power grab to say, well, no. We need to officially designate it so that way we know that the SEC and Big Ten are like recognized as being the superior two conferences.
Right, fully represented, yeah.
There are some years, like this past year, where, yeah, probably the top four in each of those leagues is probably, at the very least, worthy of being in the playoffs. But there's going to be some years where the Big 12 or the ACC or whoever gets screwed because the SEC and the SEC and Big 10 had, I'm trying to think of Minnesota get in because Minnesota had a semi-decent season.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, if you continue to expand, you're going to dilute the teams that are going in. Like, you're going to get these teams that probably don't deserve it, but at the same time, like, I mean, it would have been helpful for us if they had expanded it this last year, because CU and BYU would have been more in the conversation than they were. So,
sure,
I mean,
sure.
I
think, well, yeah, BYU, if there's 2 guaranteed spots for the Big 12, BYU would have gotten in last year because I think they would have been the second team.
Probably, yeah.
Based on the college football playoff rankings, if I recall, I think they were the next highest ranked teams. I'd have to look that up, and then the way we spanked Colorado probably shows that we were definitely a very good team last year. So,
oh yeah, you were definitely deserving more than Colorado, but yeah, it would have been BYU.
Can I just be the contrarian because
yes.
I think this is a good thing, and the only reason I think it's a good thing is for one reason and one reason only. I think a lack of teams playing football, especially playoff teams, already dilutes the product. Already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having extra is probably better than not, truthfully. But on the flip side, I don't necessarily want it to be more SEC and more Big Ten. One, because I think the ACC. Yeah. One because I think the SEC is already diluted. I mean, the Big Ten's competitive, but I don't think it's. I'm hard pressed to say 8 teams should be from both. Just out of I think it's dilute. I already think the product's gonna get diluted anyway. If they wanted to be like, hey, we want to expand to 16, but we want to have 4 more at-large bids, that's what it should be.
So,
I fully agree. You should only have 1 guaranteed spot per conference, not 4 and 2 for some. It's like,
yep.
Because at that point, why don't you just do what basketball does then? Like, that's what we're headed for, essentially, is like, why don't you just do that?
Sure.
Instead of this guaranteed thing.
I will say the expansion, I agree that I think there's some benefits to the expansion, and in terms of like in particular with even with the Big 12, this would have gotten them an extra spot last year. They didn't. Yep. They had one spot. I think the ACC had 2. How much did the SEC end up having in the 12 team?
It had
2 or 3, right?
Texas, Tennessee, and then Georgia. So yeah, 3.
3.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it gives them an extra spot. Big 12 an extra spot. ACC gets what they got.
I don't
Right.
think SEC is going to get any more anyway.
Would the ACC, honestly, though, that's my other question, though. Would they be able to provide 2 teams a year?
No. ACC sucks.
Because
It would probably be
this,
like-
this last year, what's it called? SMU was their one.
Well,
team that was
they did have 2 this year. They had SMU
They
and
had
Clemson.
2. Well, they had 2
Well,
that were both kind of deserving.
Realistically,
Yeah.
they should have had 3 because Miami should have been in, but because of
They shit the bed though. Yeah.
because of stupidity.
Yeah.
But also too, I do want to point this out too because it affected you guys. Is if they want to do that where it's more not necessarily if they were to do more at large bids, then they have to get rid of SOS. Strength schedule has to go. Because at this point SOS unless you're playing everyone, SOS means nothing.
Yeah, SOS is dumb when
Because
teams don't play each other.
Because literally it's what kept BYU out of a deserved title game. Because TCU lost again and that dropped them by 0.1 point to Iowa State.
Which is super sick.
Yeah.
Which is
It wasn't TCU, it was Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, which is
Oklahoma State lost to everybody.
Who finished last in the conference straight up.
Yeah, which is stupid because it's like, well, why is it? It's
I wouldn't
stupid.
mind them looking at tiebreakers. I think I don't know. It was a weird year though.
Why is it? But it's one of those.
Honestly though, I as a fan though, as a BYU fan, I honestly sit here and go, yeah, I agree. Like BYU should have probably been let in despite their stupidity, but like BYU also lost their way out of the playoff conversation because of losing to Kansas and then losing to who was the other school we lost to?
Did you lose to Arizona State?
Arizona
But
State. They won pretty well.
Right.
Yeah.
However,
Arizona State played well in the playoffs too, so that was
now let me be the Big Ten homer here and say the opposite side of this coin. A conference like the Big Ten, I won't say the SEC because I think the SEC is going to start slowly falling apart at the seams with what they're doing. But like the Big Ten, which is probably the best conference in the country for football, could have the same problem the SEC did, where it's just a logjam at the top, and there's not going to be a lot of turnover. So you're going to get no other team outside of like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon could realistically get a shot at getting in. So then if they said, hey, we'll give you guys 4 spots, then it opens up that from that weird oddity of, oh, hey, this team was 10-2, only lost to the 2 teams they got in. Well, they deserve to get in because they beat everybody else, which again, and I think this is the ultimate question that I think you guys being in a different conference have to ask the question is and I'm only using this example. For instance, a USC team, a 10-2 USC team, or an 11-1 like BYU team. Which team is the better team based on what they've done? And again, I think this goes back to what CJ and I've talked about, where it's like, well, then everyone plays everyone. Your schedules are you play the same teams. But that's the and I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just saying that's the caveat thinking to having this is it prevents that logjam of basically no turnover. Right? Where it's like they're good teams, they only lost to quote unquote better teams because the NFL doesn't even have that problem. Like how often do you see like a very good team completely miss the playoffs? Rarely, if at all. And I think that's so on the side of, hey, this makes sense. It's probably in that logic of thinking of, well, what happens if the 2 best conferences end up with a 10-2 team or a playoff team, hypothetically, that's in a bowl game because they got blocked by another good school.
Right.
What's good for college football? Now, argumentatively, you say, well, them playing in like the Rose Bowl is not a bad thing, which it's not. But
right, but at this point, no one cares about like those other bowl games. Like, and that's what's diluted. Yeah, it's diluted anyway because like star players who are good aren't playing in non-playoff bowl games. Why would you?
The whole thing is too is like I kind of want to make the joke about, why don't we just go back to how it used to be and just have the voter, like have the AP poll just pick the championship after all these bowl games are done, like we used to back in the old days when it was just
because that was never controversial, right?
Yeah. No, but I'm just saying, like, it's almost like, well, why don't we do that again and just have it just the randomness of it? Because I mean, that has to be the logic behind it. Is like, oh, we don't want these good teams missing out because of some weird reason.
What about this? What if they had a flex play-in? So like you don't have to use it every year, but like when there is that scenario where there's one spot left and two teams deserving, flex game. You guys, hey, next week you're headed to LA, you're playing in the Rose Bowl Stadium, we're making a spectacle of it, and whoever wins actually gets to the playoff.
Maybe, but I think, like I said, I wonder if the biggest issue is they're trying to fill in that time slot between, like, because how many weeks is it from conference title game to the first playoff game? It's like
way too many.
Like 3 weeks.
Way too many. Yeah.
So if you're trying to fix it, I mean, that's the way to fix it.
Yeah.
My vote would be 2 guaranteed spots regardless for every power
for those 4 conferences.
Power 4 conference.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be the easiest.
I would say 2, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You could, and then have like a certified system of what am I trying to say? Of like, you have to meet certain, I don't know. I don't want to say
criteria
because that kind of goes back, but yeah, like certain criteria within your conference, like even just your conference schedule of like every conference has a potential third spot, but if they don't have a third team that meets such and such credentials, like 10 wins or you know,
some number of wins, like
position conference.
The only reason I would say that's not going to work is strictly because we can't do it now. Because here the problem is actually, this is probably the bigger problem, is because we use 2 separate systems to determine teams. We can't just be like, hey, the top 16 teams get in, whoever those are. That's
honestly, that's my vote would be like, if you like, obviously there's no way you can't just not guarantee the
you can keep your conference title in, but I think I would just say this: the only one guaranteed in is your conference champion, and then from there it's a crapshoot. Because then you end up with situations like Indiana, where it's like Indiana gets in, they don't play for so long, and their asses handed to them by Notre Dame,
sure,
or anything like that, where it's just like then this is meat. Like it happens every year because it's one team gets hurt because they played an extra game, and the team that didn't gets the benefit because they sucked. They didn't get in.
Yeah, I agree.
It comes back to feels like where it's like it was like the BCS back in the day. It was a nonsensical system. It's still a nonsensical system, but now it's judged by 4 old white dudes who still think the SEC reigns supreme. Like there's and
that was always like that was my problem during this past season was every time. I forget the guy, but he's like, I think he was I don't remember if he was a Big Ten guy or a SEC kind of guy, like a guy that was representing, like he was also like the leader of the group, like because it kind of rotates between the conferences.
I think it was an SEC guy,
and he would come out like one week and be like, yeah, head-to-head matters. Then he'd come out the next week. No, recent games matter more, and it's like, what? You can't talk out both sides of your butt. Like,
I think it was the guy. I think it was the same guy who went on.
It was come up with a consistent system, and or at least just tell me, hey, I'm an SEC honk, and I hate Big 12 teams, and
because they don't have one. Because they don't have one. But
that's what I'm saying. At least pretend like you have an actual system. Try to follow yourself with some consistency. Don't like directly contradict yourself from week to week. Like, I don't mind Well, I do mind, but like I can swallow. I've already swallowed the pill that people are going to be sitting there going, "All right, Big Ten, Big Ten, and SEC. That's all that matters. Let's just get them."
It's not, the funny part is it's not even necessarily the Big Ten. It's mainly people wanting more SEC teams in. The only reason why the Big Ten got what it got was because of Indiana. That was it. It's, trust me, at the end of the day, there's not a lot of people saying, "Hey, more Big Ten." No, it's they want to somehow they want to get Alabama in. It's
They always want
the Big
Alabama
Ten. The Big Ten this year in the playoff had four teams, I think, because they had Ohio State, Georgia, Indiana.
The Big Ten had Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana.
Yeah, we only had three. We had three. The SEC had four. So I
had four.
Huh? Who had four?
You did. Big Ten.
Big Ten did.
Indiana, Ohio State,
Penn State.
Who were the other two?
Penn State. That's what Penn State was in.
Yeah.
I mean, argumentatively, I would say all of them were deserving. On the SEC side, that's the whole thing. Is I'm like, I don't think it's them trying to be like, oh, we're trying to push more Big Ten. I think they're trying to push more. They're pushing more SEC than Big Ten. And
my issue came when they were really, really trying to force Alabama in, and I was like, Bama didn't deserve it this year. They lost some bad teams. Like,
to be fair though, Bama did make it. They saw the light though.
The problem was anytime I had an argument with anybody on social media or anything about this, they'd be like,
couldn't let Indiana out.
Well, you can't tell me that you really think BYU would beat Alabama head to head. Problem is I wouldn't be able to experience it based on your guys' system, because your guys' system is lock those teams out that you don't think are deserving.
Yeah.
Pretend like Alabama was talented team ever. I will say this in favor of expansion. I think this is in favor of expansion in general, even with or without the guarantees, and it's one of the big reasons I would be in favor of saying, like, no, let's not guarantee conferences get like anything extra. Any conferences get anything extra, like other than maybe the 4 conference champions.
Mm-hmm.
Is if you expand it to 16, I think that would increase parity.
It would help.
In terms of recruiting.
It would help
because BYU, for example, because like one of the things that's increased parity for BYU or for like Colorado is maybe not the best example, because I don't know if their NIL is necessarily crazy good.
Oh, I have no idea.
They just have Dion. I think they just have
Dion is the band-aid for everything.
Like USC's an example of high NIL, but like trying to think, maybe UCLA would be a good example of a high NIL school that can now recruit like similar to USC because they can pay these guys,
You're probably recruiting better than USC, because USC can't recruit for dog shit, but that's either here.
Sure, I don't know.
Crazy,
but yeah. But what I'm saying is I think this would also increase parity in the sense of like, you could tell, like, hey, we're not locked into 2 teams, or 4 teams or whatever. They're just going to take the top 16 teams. If you think you're as talented as you think you are, you can come to our team and make us one of the top 16 teams. And like, that's so much easier of a pitch than what we kind of have in, the problem is if you give 4 to the SEC and 4 to the Big Ten, what the Big Ten schools that are coming in and recruiting against a school like Colorado or trying to think of another like Clemson or SMU.
Mm-hmm.
If all these SEC schools and all these Big Ten schools, all they have to do is come in and say, we got 4 guaranteed spots for our conference plus a possible at-large bid.
Yeah.
There's a good chance that if you come to our school, you're going to go to the playoffs.
This might be a hot take. I don't think they care anymore about it.
I think it matters less, but I think, look, for example, I think BYU NIL wise, they can just about, I'm just speaking from what I know. That's the only reason I'm mentioning BYU, by the way.
Yeah.
But they can compete, maybe not quite to Alabama's level, but their money that's flowing into BYU is not that dissimilar from Bama, which is crazy to say. But if BYU goes into these guys and says, hey, we'll offer you this much money. Bama can say, we'll offer you the same money plus a higher guarantee that you're going to be playing on the big stage, which will up your which I know you think that it doesn't matter, but it does matter because of it's the bottom line of like it matters for the same reason NIL matters. Making it into the playoffs matters for the same reason NIL matters, because ultimately you can come in and sell that and say, if you make it to the playoffs, your draft stock's gonna skyrocket,
go way up.
Yeah, because if you're playing on these big stages, if you're like, for example, if you're a solid D lineman on like I will take this another BYU example. We had a really good I think it was a lineman, maybe it was a linebacker. His name is Tyler Batty, and he was projected to be a 5th round pick. I think if he had been playing for I'm trying to think, like Texas, he probably would have still been able to start. Maybe not maybe he might have been a middle linebacker rather than an outside linebacker, so he probably would have gotten maybe a couple hundred less snaps over the course of the season, but still he would have been seeing the field, and going to the playoffs he might have been able to show at least, hey, look at what I did in the playoffs. And his draft, I think, instead of falling, because he fell out and didn't get drafted at all, he ended up with a free agent. And I mean, to be fair, in the 5th round you probably want to get taken as a undrafted free agent because you have just as much of a chance of making it to the league, and you usually get a guarantee on your contract. Shadur Sanders, did you know right now he has no guaranteed money?
Yep.
His brother Shiloh
does
has guaranteed money. His
undrafted free agent. Yeah,
$100,000 guaranteed. So it's like, what the
undrafted free agency?
Like, so, but anyways, but that's just a side. That's like a tangent. But like, so making it to the playoffs does matter because you can sell yourself and say, like, I made the playoffs. I guarantee you, Shadur would not have fallen out of day one if Colorado had made the college football playoff.
Maybe.
I don't know. I think he still doesn't get drafted, and
might have still happened,
it's how he approached the process is why.
But if he had, at the very least, he would have had the opportunity to put his skills out there in front of, you know, Penn
a few more
State or whatever.
Yeah,
and then say, look, I threw for 400 yards against a really tough defense, sort of thing. I know, like, he ended up like crapping the bed against BYU. I think maybe the whole team might have shown up a little bit better for a playoff game for Colorado.
Oh, they definitely would have, 100%.
So what I'm saying is, I think it would have been a little bit harder for him to fall out of day one or day two.
Sure.
It might have still happened.
I think it would still happen because of how he approached the interviews and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially if he approached his interviews the same way. But there might have been at least one team that was like, his interview was weird, but oh my gosh, that tape against Penn State.
Yeah.
Woo.
No, you're right. It would have potentially given him more to work with.
But instead he had a bad interview, and his last game was this bad tape against BYU where he's running for his life. Like, I don't know. So I think the playoffs gives you at least that opportunity to just sell yourself a little bit better and maybe get your draft stock a little bit higher. And that matters because it's the difference of maybe a couple $1 million.
I mean, we'll see.
You're right.
So that's why I'm against. That's why I would rather them just expand and just say 4 conference champions. Maybe here's the adjustment I would make that really seemed to upset. I think the SEC in particular.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 conference champions aren't necessarily seeds 1 through 4.
Oh, they shouldn't be. Yeah, the whole guaranteed seed thing is stupid.
They should just be guaranteed to be in the playoff.
That's so stupid.
If you win your conference, you're in the playoff.
Yeah, that's it.
Seeding,
but again,
like look at college basketball. College basketball doesn't guarantee conference champions a particular seed, does it? No, you're just guaranteed to be in the
tournament.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying originally. It's the archaic system of a bunch of old white dudes behind closed doors deciding everything. That's the problem.
We all know the real system would be relegation and restructuring all of it like the English Premier League. That's the real solution to all of this.
The real system's coming is 2 conferences that are like...
You do the NFL.
shut away from everything else. It's like a mini NFL.
But with relegations thrown in.
It's probably the Big Ten and the SEC just picking up what's in the ACC and what's in the Big 12, just organizing.
I wouldn't even do that. Why don't they just do the NCAA and then West, North, South?
I mean, I think that's what's coming is you're gonna have the Power 4 programs all band together. Maybe
not even Power 4. It's not even a Power 4. It's just an NFL.
Your method has my vote. But what I think is they're not going to include UNLV. They're not going to include Utah State. They're not going to include.
But my whole thing is,
I know. But what I'm saying,
like that's the thing I don't get.
They're not going to include the Pac-12 teams that are coming in.
See, this is the part where it baffles me because if they want to do it like the NFL does, we have Carolina. They're a dumpster fire. The Colts are a dumpster fire. All these teams are dumpster fires. Guess what? They take their lickings and they just are padded for everyone else.
I'll tell you who cares. ESPN and Fox.
Well, no offense, but too damn bad. Like, if
they call the shots, it's their money that's going to be throwing in on everything. So
I'm willing to.
And so they're the ones who are going to say.
Here's my caveat to that. If that was true, no one would give a shit about March Madness. If that were the case, March Madness would be rated higher if that was the case, because everyone loves when that random ass school out of buttfuck nowhere comes in and beats.
Thing is, that's much more likely in basketball than it is in football, though.
I know. That's my vote, but my discussion is what is realistic right now.
Then if it's realistic, then it goes back to what I said a year and a half ago on coffee.
When you and I had a heated debate
when we had the argument, and I'm like, this is what you're gonna get at the rate you're going. And it wasn't even me trying to be.
I have come to agree to that. I think the winds have changed a little bit since we had that discussion in terms of who would be involved.
No, it has.
Because from what I can tell, it seems more like they might take almost every Power 4 team and then disclude like a couple, like 3 or 4 teams.
Your Mountain West.
I don't know what the. Well, no, I'm not talking about the Mountain. I'm talking like there might be a Big 12 team like.
Which is
like
anyway.
I don't know, Houston or somebody that they might say.
Purdue sucked, Arizona sucked, Northwestern sucked. Like
Purdue,
pick one of those.
Not Villanova, Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, yeah, they usually suck.
Schools there's certain schools, and then there's ACC teams.
Well, they're there for the GPA thing, right? Because they have to have a GPA requirement. So a lot of times you have one nerd school that helps.
That is true.
The GPA.
Yeah,
that they would have.
Like I'm sure that's why Stanford and Wake Forest are in the ACC. If we're being real.
Yeah. So
yeah. I mean,
some kind of balance.
And so I think and I do hope that happens, because then what you're saying about regions, I think, does happen. I think once these conferences once the SEC and Big Ten come together and do all this, they're going to sit there and say, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to have pods. Because you'll still have USC occasionally travel to play Ohio State, because that's a big game.
Yeah,
but you'll have games year round where BYU and USC have to face off, or BYU and or USC and Oregon State or something. I don't know.
Well, he's got to remember this isn't mainly for football, because football is a little different. Because I think you can it's mainly for the other sports, because they have like basketball. They do 2 games a week, and baseball and softball are series. So
yeah. So yeah. Anyways, I've accepted that all happened, but I think that they're going about it with the wrong approach. But I'm more now also just in the vein of like, let's just get to the mega conferences, like determine who's who and who's not, like who you're gonna invite, who's not, and just let's just go, because it's time to like.
Isn't it the sad thing when you can see the writing on the wall and you're sort of like, oh, whatever?
Yeah, it's like I'm opposed to this, but. Because I honestly think it'll be bad for college football. I think there'll be benefits, but it'll be bad for college football as a whole, because you'll have fans, mega fans of teams, that are just going to sit there and be like, all right.
I don't know if it'll
Or
necessarily
like,
ruin the fans thing.
Well,
I'm just saying, like I told you, like you're mentioning that the last time we had this discussion, if BYU was discluded, I'd stop watching college football altogether, other than the championship game.
No, if I don't think those small towns with like the love for their team, I don't think that disappears if
no,
it
wouldn't. No, but I think
no. But what I'm saying is, like, they'll still play. Like let's say BYU didn't get included. BYU would join a whatever's left with Utah State and like the new Pac-12 or whatever. Yeah. They would still play as long as it's making them enough money. They'd still be like, okay, we'll field the team and go up against these other guys, and we've been shoot away sort of thing. It'd be like, yeah, okay, they do that. And I'd watch them, but I wouldn't watch.
You just wouldn't have the investment.
I would be watching BYU thinking every week, oh, this is great, like BYU football, whatever, woo.
Yeah, no offense.
I also wouldn't sit there. I wouldn't care about watching Ohio State and USC. I'll watch those players when they make it to the NFL.
To be fair, I also don't care about Ohio State, USC. But that's for another.
Yeah, but you're a dead inside USC fan. That's why that's the case.
None of my teams bring me joy.
Right.
Anyways, let's go to the NBA playoffs. I think we've all accepted college football is going in a way that's probably not the best, but it's going to get there anyways.
I don't know. Lakers are out of it, so I'm not paying attention anymore. So
I'm paying attention because of what the Knicks have done to the Celtics. The Celtics are now playing like must-win games every night, and it's fun to watch.
The Celtics killed the Knicks today. They won by like
Crazy Joe told him to let the hate flow through him.
It's Darcidius, dude. He's here.
I think it's the same thing I think that happened with Denver and Oklahoma City. It was like, no, you're not going to do us like that. And like they came back and were like, we're setting things right. Yeah. I think the same thing happened with Boston today. So I'm more. I was expecting Boston win. If Boston had lost today, or if it had been incredibly close,
it would have been wraps.
I would have been like, oh my gosh, is something wrong with Boston? But now instead, I'm like, okay, let's see what happens game 4. Does Boston continue to have that energy, or are they going to sit around and be like, okay, we got our payback, like let's just go back to what we were doing, sort of thing? Like, does it go back to that same energy as before, and then New York surprises them for a third time? Because if this series goes to 3-1, I'm almost like, all right, that's a wrap on Boston. Like,
yeah. Well, the thing is,
but it would be really tough for Boston to win another one in New York.
Yeah. And 3-1 is tough to come back from. I think it's only happened like 7 or 8 times, something like that. But that's essentially how all of these series have gone, except for the Wolves Warriors. Like, Cavs lost 2 at home, and then they crushed the Pacers in game 3, similar to what Boston did. Thunder lose the Nuggets game 1. They kill the Nuggets in game 2. So these teams are kind of like doing that. Hey, we got to like, they're in panic mode at this point with, losing those games at home.
I've got 2 teams that I absolutely need to lose, though.
Yeah,
the Warriors, the Warriors, and the Celtics.
Okay,
can they just stay out of the conference championship? Not conference championship, but conference.
I disagree on the Warriors one. I would like the Timberwolves to lose that one. Thank you, sir, because I hate the Timberwolves and they are boogeyman.
I would love to see it because I look, the Timberwolves beat the Lakers.
Yeah,
but I would love to see it because I love Anthony Edwards. That dude's
he's good.
The only thing I don't like that's different between because he reminds me so much of Kobe. But the only thing that was different was I was listening to the radio broadcast of that last game for the Lakers, and they talked to Anthony Edwards on the radio, and they were like, "Hey, so you had a bad game, but you guys were still able to pull this one out." He's like, I don't think I had a bad game because my teammates all had good games. And I was like, no, you can't sit there and pretend like you didn't have a bad game just because you guys won. Like, yes, you can say, look, I'm not thinking that much about it because we won. Like, I'll go out and perform better in the next series. But because that was the difference, because that was a difference for me between him and Kobe, because when Kobe would lose like that, Kobe would come out and they'd be like, man, what'd you think of that game? And they wouldn't even have to ask him hey, you had a bad game. they would be like, "Hey, what'd you think of the game?" And he'd be like, "Dude, I was terrible."
Yeah.
But thankfully, Ron Artest and Pau Gasol, they really picked me up tonight. Sort of, he had interviews like that, and that was what I loved about Kobe. Was when it was time to be cocky, he was cocky, but when it was time to be like, "Hey, I sucked,"
Yeah,
he was the guy. Like that was what made him a good leader in the locker room. Was he could call people out and like you believed him.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the thing, because I don't think you were here. We're talking about like the Lakers losing to the T-Wolves and how all of a sudden instantly like, oh, LeBron hurt his toe, Austin Reeves stubbed his pinky. It was like, why are we making excuses? They lost because they were just they were just bad.
The roster was bad.
The roster was bad, and they just wanted to glaze LeBron.
There was something LeBron said. I can't remember what the quote was, but
oh,
go to the Met Gala because of his quote-unquote injury. What a line sack of shit.
I remember earlier today, I don't know if this is a quote you're thinking about, but he was like, hey, he was on his podcast, he's like, I don't know how me and Luka lose, and then he's like, then I remember there's 8 other players on the court, where it felt like he was kind of throwing under the bus his 3 other guys outside of Luka.
He clearly in this playoff series is
like, damn, that's tough.
He's kind of like, I'm here. Like, we'll just whatever.
No, that's the problem. Part of me wonders.
You know what it was? You know what it was?
Did he think Luka would take more of the front?
No. It was the quote was, well, Anthony Davis said it. We need a center.
He ain't wrong,
and
though.
it was. He was right, but it was like
he was very right.
There was something else he said in the quote where it was like he was refusing to take responsibility for his poor play.
Of course. He's the classic person where he's more willing to throw Luka under the bus and say, well, I'm old, like basically be like, well, I'm old. It should have been Luka who's doing more. And it's like, bro, if Luka took over, you had been whining the entire time. Like, I don't know where he's one of those guys where he's such a, I don't want to take, I only want to be praised. I don't want any of the criticism. I just want credit. Like all he wants, they do it all the time where it was the Lakers lose and hey, LeBron James scored 38 points. It's like, congratulations. You still got your asses handed to you by Anthony Edwards.
I think he's taken blame so often in his career. He's like
he's tired of it. Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, but you've got to either that or get out of the league.
Like, yeah, no, exactly. Then, dog, go retire. Go retire. Start your podcast where all you can do is just talk shit on Stephen A. Smith and hang out with Nick Wright. By all means, go ahead and do it. If you want to go away and you want to go away, by all means, get the fuck out. I do not care anymore. Go back to Cleveland. I do not give a shit.
What I'm hoping for LeBron is that the rumors are true. Because the rumors right now are that he's probably going to opt out of his contract.
Good, go.
And no. The rumors right now are that he's going to opt out of his contract to restructure his deal to be like friendly to the franchise because he wants to try to see if he can push out a.
I don't want him. I don't want him. That's the whole thing. I think most people don't want him back.
But if you get rid of him, who are you going to replace that talent gap with?
I don't care. I have Luka.
So you would rather kind of tear it down with Luka?
You need to take somebody off. I think if you get rid of LeBron too soon, you get rid of Luka. That's the problem. When I say you get rid of Luka, you're gonna lose Luka because Luka wants to be. I think
here's the whole thing.
If Luka was told like, look, you're gonna have shit players all around you until we can get something around you.
Here's what you do. Here's what you do.
The problem is if you get rid of LeBron right now.
Here's what you do.
You can't even sign somebody at the contract that LeBron's on right now, because he's on a franchise friendly, or he's on a deal that is only the way it is because in terms of over the cap, because
here's what you do,
because he's been on the Lakers enough time.
Here's what you do, because you know what's going to happen in the summer. Happens every summer. There's going to be a couple disgruntled stars who are going to want out.
Giannis.
Whether let's say Giannis.
Giannis.
My target.
That's the one.
What do you give?
No, hold on. My target though, from the drop, has been Zion, another JJ, a guy who played with JJ, who knows JJ, who's a guy who's not gonna who also has been called fat, and a guy that I think with JJ would push into shape. I will trade whatever assets there are to get Anthony Edwards.
Exactly, but that's my point. Like that. You've given up every single asset you have if you're the Lakers. Like,
yeah, no, that's my point.
What assets you have? Reeves and Connect are solid, but they're not going to get you a star. Reeves Connect and some draft picks. Reeves Connect a couple other like Rui Hachimura and some other guys.
Why
and throw in some draft picks? Yeah, you might be able to get like a decent player, but you're not going to get.
I think you could.
Zion Williamson because New Orleans. Because somebody's going to come in like Utah is going to come in with an offer of like 5 future first round draft picks from these.
No, they won't. No,
I think Austin Reeves and then other stuff does get Zion. I don't think his trade value in the NBA is very high because of his conditioning and injury issues.
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be a buy low type of situation.
Here's what would happen. I'm willing to guess this is what's going to happen. Giannis will be the guy over the summer. I think he goes to Oklahoma City. Unfortunately,
I hate that.
But then what? I think KD goes to the Heat. And I do think the Lakers actually go out and get Zion because I think they're willing to buy low on someone like him because then they just tell him, hey, you're to come in. You, Luka, and James are just going to work out as hard as you possibly can because I think those 2 younger guys could probably beat every team in the West, maybe minus the Nuggets and Thunder at that point.
Yeah, just throwing it out there. Hachimura, Reeves, and Vanderbilt get you Zion.
Yeah,
salary-wise. Throw in some firsts and Connect or something, and you're cooking.
I think that's probably likely.
My question would still be at that point, who do you put in who do you sign like as a big man? Because
that would still be a concern,
solid, but you still need a big guy. You need a guy who
What's out?
Yeah, who are the upcoming
free
lot
agents
out there?
I know I've seen suggestions for the Lakers to pick up
Clint Capella, who's probably about the level you'd be able to sign at like the mid-level exception.
I guess he's probably like still decent enough. You know who'd be good, but he's a small forward. Let me see.
It says the AI's answer, but based on what's it called? I
got one for you. And he's cheap, CJ. My boy Steven Adams.
No, Steven Adams is ours. We need a backup center for Jokic. Okay.
I'm just saying, he'd be in that range.
No, I know he would, but stay away. I want Steven Adams so bad.
I could like as an idea.
Or, hey, you know what? Hey, or hear me out. We just steal Naz Reid.
Naz Reid's too good. Naz Reid needs a bigger salary than what he's making.
He's making 15.
Yeah. Kevon Looney.
Looney would, I think, be good.
Like, there's definitely things you can do to give you better stuff than Jackson Hayes and the ghost of Maxi Kleba, which is essentially what you guys did in the last game.
Al Horford game?
Al Horford, yeah, like...
Bryce will enjoy this one. We bring back Lakers legends, Morris Wagner. Lakers legends.
He's got to be staying in Orlando.
Just go out and sign Dwight Howard at this point. I'm just kidding.
Lakers legend. I think guys who I think would be good.
Brooke Lopez, Lakers legend.
I wouldn't mind Brooke coming back, honestly.
Honestly, he's like the best free agent center out here.
I know that the Lakers did try to target pretty heavily on Walker Kessler for the Jazz.
That'd be a good one.
He's super good, but like I think that the problem is he is one of the few look, there's not for the Jazz right now, there's not a lot of untouchable pieces. He is one of them.
I don't know if he's untouchable though. It seems like they were dangling him over the trade deadline. At least there were rumors about it, but
the thing is they're dangling him, but they're dangling him for a mega package.
That's true, I guess, huh? Yeah.
They're not dangling him like, hey, just take this off our hands.
Yeah.
They're saying like you either need to give us 5 draft picks and a couple solid players, or and I mean, I could see
you're right.
And you're honestly, right. That's what I see the Jazz do. Like, if you were to ask me, I see the Jazz getting rid of him this offseason. he's either untouchable or he's like gonna get you like Rudy Gobert type return.
Yeah,
because
get you
somebody's
a haul.
gonna be desperate enough to say like, hey, we'll give you all the assets we have because we need a big guy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
I don't know. So I see them getting rid of him only for the sake of, especially, and I say this would happen especially if they get the first pick on Monday. If they get
that's Monday.
If they get the first pick in the lottery, if they get the first pick in the lottery and they know they're going to get flag, they're not going to build around him immediately. They're going to try to get another high draft pick next year to potentially, hopefully maybe see if they can get like a Debonsa or something.
I found the perfect center.
Oh God,
he's cheap. He's 25 years old. The legend the tall man, the lanky motherfucker from Phoenix, Arizona. Bol.
You don't want him as your center. Trust me. He played for the Nuggets. He's so bad. He's so bad.
He's what everyone thought Wemby would be. He's what Wemby is what people thought he would be.
He's Wemby without the hustle or rebounding ability or shooting ability or anything.
Let me clarify this. Nobody ever thought he was going to be what Wemby is.
No, but
he's just so
hoped. People hoped. I remember when he got drafted, the talk was, "Oh, he's such an intriguing pick because what he could turn into." And it was
there's a reason the Nuggets got him in the second round. Yeah.
He's just so he's taller than Wemby.
The Nuggets were hoping they'd strike gold like they did with Jokic and be like,
that's exactly what happened.
It looks bad, maybe he's good, and then it's like
he's 7'3".
Yeah, he was bad. He was bad.
The man is 7'3" with a 7'8" wingspan. How does he suck at basketball?
So it's crazy because he doesn't give a shit. That's why he sucks at basketball. I've never seen that man run, and his handle is terrible. Even though he tries to take dudes off the dribble, and he can't shoot, and he doesn't rebound. It's incredible how bad of a basketball player he is for his size. It's crazy.
He has to exist.
I know.
He has to just do this. It's not hard.
I think Sean Bradley has shown you have to do more than exist as a basketball player, as a tall basketball. Although I will say this, Sean Bradley was
decent. Yeah, he was good.
Semi-decent.
Better than Bol.
He wasn't what everybody hoped he would be, but he was, he wasn't a game-changing franchise player like everybody hoped he would be back in the day, but
I got it. We'll bring back Andre Drummond, the useless potato.
That's the move.
Yeah. He gets rebounds. Who's this? Sandro Malahogi-Shiveli.
Mashavelli from San Antonio?
Yeah, that dude.
Yeah, he's good. A lot of people like him. I don't know if he's any good though. I haven't actually watched him.
His last name has too many symbols.
Sure does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
He's a Serbian. He can hang out with the Serbian brother.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to bring up?
I want to say
Alex Len sucks. That's
Alex Len is terrible. I want to say the Thunder looked like a really young team last night. Like,
can Aaron Gordon play center?
Aaron Gordon plays backup center. No, dude, Aaron Gordon. I saw a tweet today that was really true, where it was like, if you thought Dallas fans were mad they traded Luka, the city of Denver would burn down if we traded Aaron Gordon. We love him so much. He is never going anywhere. Okay. Aaron Gordon is Mr. Nugget. Okay, and he is ours forever. Yeah, I think the Nuggets beat the Thunder because they're super young, and you could tell in overtime last night. We outscored them. I think it was 12-2 in overtime. So,
Luke Cornett
throwing that out there.
I am honestly curious. I'll make this thought short, but I am honestly curious about how that series finishes out, because you're right. Oklahoma City does have young guys,
super young.
So that either means they're going to rise to the occasion like they will later in their careers right now. Like this will be the beginning of them learning to rise to the occasion.
Yep.
Or they're gonna shrink and be like, I don't know, we don't have enough experience.
And that's the thing is, last night they shrunk. So at least so far this series, they haven't really shown they're growing into that yet.
I think more of what last night wasn't much of an occasion. It was Jokic coming in and saying no.
Well, Jokic
us like that 2 games in a row.
Well, Jokic sucked though yesterday. He was terrible.
Bismack
and we still won.
Yeah,
so that's what.
But I'm guessing the leadership he had in
Oh,
the locker room.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah,
is
and
a huge portion of what causes because when he's
Porter.
invested in the locker room, you can tell the other players step up their games. That was like what happened versus the Lakers. Was he was just like over those.
Then Jamal Murray does his stuff.
He's just like
okay.
Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
If Luka is more like invested in things or is like leading well in the locker room, Jamal Murray suddenly can't miss a three. It's like he's like, oh man, I love playing with this guy. Boom, three, and you're just like, oh, what the heck? This guy doesn't miss.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the next series and misses like 20 shots, and you're like, what the heck?
Yeah. Jamal Murray, when he's on, he's a monster. But Nuggets game 4 tomorrow at 1:30. So we'll see how the Thunder
Isaiah Crawford.
Who the hell is Isaiah Crawford?
Oh, he's a guard. It went to guard.
Why are we?
Dude, you could have Bismarck Biyombo.
Dwight Powell, he's still around. We can take Dwight Powell.
He is, yeah.
Luke Cornett.
I mean,
Ariel.
He's just grasping at center straws. That's what's happening right here. Yeah. He's like, anybody, please. We need a big man.
I'm trying to get just guys with good sounding names. USC legend Taj Gibson.
That man is 55 now. There's no way.
Is he fat and can block Anthony Ant? Isaac Jones.
Do we have anything else?
No, we don't.
Carlson is going to be the answer.
We can even end this as as Specs is
naming centers.
Naming
centers. All right, yeah.
Charles Bazzi.
Shout out Charles Bazley.